I know you've tried everything. You've taken courses, attempted to wake up early, made goal lists, written down your dreams, even made New Year's resolutions to change your life. But the results just never materialized. And perhaps, at this very moment, you're sitting there asking yourself, why does it feel like nothing ever works out for me? Why do I see others thriving, growing, building businesses, traveling, turning their dreams into reality, while I'm still struggling, repeating the same old patterns, watching the months go by as if nothing ever changes? The truth is, there's a reason, and it's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's not a lack of capability. There's an invisible barrier that keeps millions of individuals stuck in the same place without even realizing it. Most people go through their entire lives without ever discovering what's truly holding them back. But today, you're about to find out. I wasn't born into privilege. I didn't grow up with abundant opportunities. In fact, I was never really seen as someone with great potential. I left school early, had no diploma, no vision for the future, no particular plan. I took on jobs that required nothing more than physical labor, changing tires, pumping gas, greasing engines, doing whatever came my way just to cover the bare essentials. And for a long time, I believed my destiny was already set in stone. Perhaps you felt that way too. That persistent feeling that the world is moving forward, yet you're stuck in the same spot, as if there's a locked door between the life you have and the life you truly desire. I experience that every single day. But the great mystery, the one few people ever uncover, is that this door isn't on the outside. It doesn't depend on degrees, connections, luck, government, or economic crises. It resides within us. And when that truth truly sinks in, when you grasp that your external life is merely a reflection of what's happening internally, everything shifts. Most people live believing that reality shapes who they are. But the truth is, who they are shapes reality. When you live without recognizing this, you wake up every day expecting something to change. But nothing does, because nothing has changed within. And here's what I want you to grasp right now. There's no such thing as permanent failure, only mental programming. A person can be talented, intelligent, and hardworking, yet still remain stuck because they carry within them a self-image that says, I can't do it, I don't deserve it, it's not for me, it's too difficult, it's too late. How many times have you thought something like that? How many times have you truly believed you weren't meant to have money, that success only happens for a select few, that life is just a struggle, plain and simple? The world's biggest prison has no bars, it has beliefs. I experienced this firsthand. I remember when still very young, my future seemed so small it could fit inside a toolbox. I worked as a firefighter, earned very little, was always exhausted, and honestly, I saw no way out until someone placed a book in my hands, just one book. And in just a few pages, it did something years of my life hadn't. It shifted my focus. While everyone around me was debating inflation, salaries, politics, bills, problems, that book spoke of something entirely different: the power of the human mind. It said, we don't have to accept the reality we encounter. We can create the reality we desire. That hit me like a bolt of lightning. I started to think, what if I'm wrong about myself? What if my potential is far greater than I imagine? And what if, in reality, I am the sole person responsible for building the individual I can become? That thought began to burn within me. Perhaps you're feeling something similar right now. And that's where the first major turning point occurred. I didn't change the economy, didn't change my salary, didn't experience sudden luck. What changed was my mental direction. And when I changed, the world responded. I quit my job and started a small cleaning business. A simple venture, something no one would consider grand. But I had the key that so many people lack: a renewed self-image. I believed I could grow. And grow I did. In less than 1 year, I had revenues equivalent to over $100,000. And that was without a degree, without experience, and knowing almost nothing about business. It sounds impossible, but let me ask you a question. How many things in your life have you looked at and thought, I can't do it, when in reality what was missing wasn't skill, but belief? If today you feel like you're trying and nothing ever happens, perhaps the truth is simple. You're attempting to fix something on the outside that needs to be resolved on the inside. Everything begins with your self-image. If you see yourself as limited, your life will remain limited. If you see yourself as small, your results will continue to be small. And if you genuinely want to change your life, you need to accept something no one might have told you until now. You're not fighting against the world. You're fighting against the version of yourself that has been trained to believe you can't. And now, before we continue, I want you to do something simple. Think about everything you desire, but haven't yet achieved. Then ask yourself, what version of myself am I trying to use to accomplish this? Because if that version doesn't change, nothing will. This is just the beginning. What comes next will open even more doors. When I discovered that my self-image was controlling my life, everything clicked into place. I realized that millions of people wake up every single day with a quiet sense of frustration, not because they lack opportunities, but because they carry mental programming that constantly pulls them back to the same reality. How many times have you decided you would change, that you would start, that this time would be different, only to find that after a few days, everything reverted to the old pattern? It's not a lack of willpower. It's your subconscious mind sending you back to what it considers normal. And if your normal is to live without money, with fear, with limitations, then even when you try to grow, something inside you pulls you back to that former level. It's like trying to drive with the parking brake on. Most people think change comes from new information, new books, new exercises. But real change happens when you alter who you believe yourself to be. Science has repeatedly demonstrated this. When an individual consistently experiences negative situations regarding money, their mind creates deep emotional connections that reinforce fear, frustration, and a sense of inadequacy. And as these neural circuits strengthen, the brain does what it was designed to do: protect you, even if that means hindering your growth. That's why so many people are afraid to charge more for their work, afraid to ask for a raise, afraid to start a business, afraid to take risks. They're not scared of external consequences. They're afraid to confront their own internal beliefs. I distinctly remember when I decided to launch my first business. I had no experience, no formal education, no guarantees. I only had one burning question within me. What if the problem was never the world outside? What if the problem was always how I viewed myself? Many people gave me strange looks. Some laughed. Others said I was crazy to quit a stable job just to clean carpets. But have you ever noticed how most people who offer unsolicited advice in your life don't have the results you actually want? The world is full of opinion specialists who have never truly achieved anything significant. And if you listen to that kind of person, you end up living their life, not your own. And let me ask you something now. How many times have you held back from taking a risk because someone told you it wouldn't work out? How many opportunities have you missed due to fear of judgment? How many times have you envisioned something great, something that truly called to you from within, only to hear that voice say, "It's not for me"? When you think small, your life stays small. When you think big, your world expands. For many, this simple shift in mindset would be enough to double their income, open unexpected doors, and create a life that once seemed impossible. But now, I need you to do something important. If these words are making sense to you so far, if you feel that in some way this is speaking to you, if you're enjoying the content up to this point, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This might seem like just a button on the screen, but for this channel, it's the difference between this kind of content reaching more people or disappearing among millions of videos. When you like and subscribe, you're telling the platform that this topic has value, that people need to hear this, that this message transforms lives. So, if this is truly adding value to you, return that value with a simple gesture. This allows us to continue bringing content that genuinely changes the way you perceive the world. Now, getting back to it, the major shift in my life happened when I realized it wasn't enough to just think about success. I had to become someone capable of handling it. And that's one of the biggest reasons why so many people crumble when they finally achieve what they desired. Have you ever noticed how many celebrities become millionaires and then lose everything, destroy their lives, sink into addictions, depression, and instability? Often, they achieve external success, but haven't developed the internal structure to cope with it. Mike Tyson, for example, became a phenomenon, accumulated fortunes most people will never see in their lifetimes, yet he ended up losing almost everything because his mind was never strengthened in the same proportion as his career. Money amplifies who you already are. If you don't truly know yourself, it can destroy you. On the flip side, there are individuals who transformed their lives precisely because they altered their mental programming before success even arrived. Oprah Winfrey is a powerful example. She emerged from immense hardship, facing situations that would have emotionally shattered most, yet she nurtured such a potent vision of who she could become that her life had no choice but to follow that path. She understood that the external world bows to a resolute mind, and this has always held true, even when no one else believed in her. Now, I want to leave you with a simple reflection. What kind of mind are you nurturing right now? The one that repeats old patterns, or the one that chooses to create a new reality? Because there is no neutrality. You either reaffirm the past or you build the future. And if you truly want to feel the effects of this shift, here's a challenge. For the next 7 days, wake up and before touching your phone, repeat aloud a phrase that represents the new version of yourself. Something like, I am capable of creating the life I desire, or I deserve to grow, prosper, and live the best the world has to offer. Say this before the world tells you otherwise. 7 days. It's a short period, but you will be amazed by the effect this can have on your emotional state and how you perceive your possibilities. Because when the mind changes, everything changes. And from here we're going much deeper. When I began to deeply understand how the mind controls our reality, I realized something that completely changes the game. No one fails for lack of opportunity. No one gets stuck for lack of ability. No one remains stagnant because life has closed doors. The true reason most people don't change is that they don't emotionally believe they deserve the next level. It sounds simple, but it's devastating. You might have beautiful goals written on paper. You might watch motivational videos. You might tell yourself you want to earn more money, have more peace, own your own business. But if, deep down, in the core of your subconscious, you still feel small, insecure, limited, unworthy, or incapable, your mind will sabotage everything you try to do on the outside. Science has proven this countless times. The human brain operates to keep you in a familiar zone, even if that zone is unhappy. It prefers to repeat a life that hurts but is known, rather than risk a new life it doesn't yet understand. That's why many people spend decades repeating the same financial mistakes, choosing the same types of relationships, sabotaging themselves at decisive moments, postponing projects that could change their story. The mind creates an internal thermostat. It won't let you exceed the limit of the self-image you've already accepted as true. If a person believes they can only earn a certain amount per month, they might change jobs, start businesses, try new things. In the end, they'll inevitably return to that same level. Life always adjusts to your identity. I experienced this firsthand. When I started earning more money, a very interesting thing happened. My external world ascended. I was growing, earning more, expanding my business. But inside, my self-image was still that of an uneducated, valueless, uncredible young man. And when that happens, the subconscious starts finding ways to pull you back. Suddenly, inexplicable things begin to go wrong. Bad decisions surface. Distractions appear out of nowhere. Unnecessary expenses creep in. Results plummet. Not because you're disorganized, but because your mind is trying to bring you back to the old level. I felt this conflict acutely. For a period, I earned well, but spent poorly. The money came in, but it left just as quickly. And this taught me one of the greatest truths I've ever discovered. If you don't change on the inside, what you achieve on the outside will slip through your fingers. Have you ever paused to consider if this has happened to you? Perhaps you got a raise, but then unexpected expenses emerged that consumed it all. Maybe you saved money for a few months, but then something caused you to deplete your account again. Perhaps you planned a project and mysteriously lost momentum, focus, or motivation. Many think it's bad luck, but bad luck doesn't repeat with such precision. This is mental programming. People who don't feel worthy of prosperity sabotage their own prosperity. People afraid of receiving love sabotage their relationships. People who believe success demands suffering create burdensome lives. The external world is merely a mirror of the story you tell yourself every single day. And don't think this only happens to ordinary people. Major celebrities, entrepreneurs, and public figures have also fallen victim to this internal war. Take the case of Amy Winehouse, an extraordinary voice, rare talent, meteoric success. But inside, she carried emotional wounds and an identity unprepared to cope with the reality her talent had achieved. The result? Destruction. Not due to a lack of opportunity, but because her inner mind didn't align with the external world. Success without emotional structure transforms into tragedy. And this holds true for anyone, famous or anonymous. On the other hand, there are equally impressive examples of transformation when the mindset shifts first. Jim Carrey, for instance, before becoming one of Hollywood's biggest stars, wrote the mental script every day of the person he wished to become. Before he had fame, before he had money, before he had recognition, he had already envisioned himself as someone great. He carried a symbolic check for $10 million, written out in full, dated in the future, as if it were already real. He was training his self-image to accept the magnitude of life that would later arrive, and the world responded. But let's talk about real-life, everyday situations, because perhaps you're not a famous artist or athlete. Perhaps you're just an ordinary person, trying to take steps that seem small, but can change everything. Many people want to start a business but don't, because they fear their family's judgment. They want to study something new, but the internal voice says, "You're too old for that now." They want to earn more but think, "No one will pay me that much." And what they don't realize is that they defend their limitations more than their possibilities. It's as if someone spent their life clipping their own wings and then complained they couldn't fly. And now I want to propose a simple yet profound reflection. What story have you been telling yourself? When you describe yourself in your mind, who do you believe yourself to be? Because that's the version shaping your reality today. If you want a new life, you need to start telling a new story about yourself. It doesn't matter where you are. What matters is where you decide you will be. The world might push you around, but you always have the power to choose how you see yourself. Now for the practical part. During this week, observe every negative thought that arises about money, about your capabilities, about your future. Don't fight against it. Just acknowledge it and ask, is this true? Or is it just something I've repeated so many times that it started to feel real? When you begin to question your beliefs, something powerful happens. They weaken. And when they weaken, you start to grow. And this is just the beginning. In the upcoming sessions, we will delve much deeper into the structure that truly changes lives. When I finally understood that my mind was the source of my results, I began to study human behavior with an almost obsessive intensity. I wanted to understand why some people change while others spend their entire lives wishing for a transformation that never arrives. And one of the most shocking conclusions I discovered is that most people have never truly learned to think. They learn to repeat information, they learn to memorize facts, they learn to follow orders, but they don't learn to build a mental image of the life they desire and keep it strong enough until the external world is compelled to follow suit. This explains why so many people study, yet still remain plagued by fear, insecurity, doubt, and a lack of practical results. Information doesn't change lives. What changes lives is identity plus action with emotional consistency. And this has scientific grounding. Research shows that about 95% of our decisions are made by the subconscious even before we become aware of them. This means your life isn't guided by the person you think you are, but by the person you've become accustomed to being. That's why you can have extraordinary goals written down in a notebook and still live a mediocre reality. The goal resides in your conscious mind, but real life is being run on autopilot. Think of someone who decides to get in shape. They excitedly sign up for the gym, buy new clothes, plan workouts, but after 1 week, 2, or even 3, they revert to old habits. It's not because they don't want to change, and it's because their mind doesn't yet recognize them as someone healthy, disciplined, and strong. Habit follows identity. Life follows self-image. And with money, it works exactly the same way. How many people do you know who constantly complain about not having money, yet continue to spend on things they don't need, buy on impulse, manage poorly, and postpone important decisions? This isn't a lack of financial literacy, it's a lack of awareness. The brain of someone who perceives themselves as poor makes decisions that keep that reality alive. In contrast, someone who perceives themselves as prosperous makes completely different decisions, even with limited money. Identity comes first. The result follows. If you don't change internally, you can earn more money and still live with fear, guilt, or the constant feeling that anything could go wrong at any moment. Let me share a memory that profoundly shaped my journey. Early in my professional life, as my business began to truly thrive, I started traveling, giving talks, speaking with people, and teaching what I was learning. And one thing consistently struck me. I would encounter brilliant, talented, intelligent people who were suffering. People who had families, knowledge, and capability, yet lived in fear of the future, trapped by past traumas, and experiencing a present that always seemed below their potential. In one of these conversations, I remember sitting across from a man who had worked for years at a company, earning very little, frustrated with life, but with an extraordinary talent for drawing. He showed me a portfolio of sketches so good they could easily have been featured in newspapers, magazines, or advertising agencies. When I asked him why he wasn't pursuing that professionally, he lowered his gaze and said, "I'm just not good enough." But he was. His mind, however, wouldn't let him believe it. At that moment, I felt a deep ache, realizing something profound. The world isn't full of incapable people. The world is full of people who don't believe in themselves. How many talents have been buried because someone heard "that won't work out" in childhood? How many brilliant careers never materialized because a person compared themselves to someone else and decided they weren't sufficient? How many businesses were never launched because the person believed more in fear than in their own future? Perhaps this has happened to you. Perhaps you once had a dream you abandoned. Perhaps you let an idea die before even trying. Perhaps you lost faith in yourself because you looked too much at others and too little within. The mind can build empires, but it can also destroy destinies. And if you closely observe the history of humanity's greatest figures, you'll see a clear pattern. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Do you think a person fails that many times and keeps trying if they don't possess a completely unshakable inner vision? Henry Ford was ridiculed when he said he would build an engine with 8 cylinders in a single block. Experienced engineers swore it was impossible, but he persisted until the impossible became reality. It's not circumstances that define your destiny. It's the size of the vision you carry within you. Those with vision succeed even in scarcity. Those without vision lose even in abundance. Now let's bring this into everyday life. Think of someone who leaves home every single day for work, takes crowded buses, faces traffic, and does the best they can. But this person's mind is constantly bombarded with negative messages, newspapers talking about crises, family members saying things are tough, friends saying nothing ever changes, co-workers complaining about their pay. How do you think this person will build a prosperous mindset if their entire environment reinforces scarcity? It's impossible. The mind needs to be nurtured like a garden. If you don't choose what to plant, weeds grow. If you don't choose what to listen to, fear grows. If you don't choose which messages enter your mind, the world will decide for you. And the world rarely chooses greatness. And now comes something essential. If you want to change your life, you need to mentally protect yourself from everything that reinforces the reality you want to leave behind. This means reducing your consumption of destructive news, stepping away from conversations that pull you down, and daily reinforcing what you wish to build. You cannot spend your entire day feeding on fear and expect to produce courage. You cannot spend your entire day hearing that the world is getting worse and expect to believe your life can improve. The subconscious absorbs everything and transforms it into reality. Therefore, here's a simple and powerful exercise. For the next 3 days, choose just one thing, only one, that you know mentally pulls you down, and temporarily eliminate it. It could be a person, a habit, a news channel, content that makes you feel insufficient. Choose one and eliminate it. At the same time, Add a positive habit as simple as listening to 10 minutes of transformative content each day. Just that. 3 days. You will be surprised by the impact, because small internal changes produce big external shifts. And now, we're still not finished. In the next part, we'll delve into the point where people finally begin to truly turn the corner. That's where everything starts to fall into place. When you begin to comprehend that everything in the universe responds to the frequency you choose to emit, something powerful happens within you. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as the conscious creator of your reality. And it's at this point that many people are surprised, because they realize they weren't failing. They were simply creating by default, without intention, without direction, reacting to their environment instead of commanding their vibration. You see, vibration precedes action. If you act with fear, anxiety, haste, or desperate need, the action itself might be grand, but the return will be small. However, if the vibration is one of certainty, confidence, prosperity, security, and fullness, even simple actions produce greater results than you'd imagine. Because the universe doesn't respond to what you do. The universe responds to what you are while doing. And when you truly understand this, you realize that your only daily job is this: adjusting your frequency before acting. That's why I always say that people living on autopilot miss the most valuable opportunity of existence, to choose how they want to feel, think, and vibrate. It's not about ignoring challenges, but about looking at them with a higher consciousness, with a perspective that already contains the solution, even before the problem fully presents itself. Most people try to fix life from the outside in. They want to see change happen first, only then to feel better. But the law has never worked that way. The correct sequence is always feel first, receive later, vibrate first, materialize later. Change is internal before it is external. Therefore, the results you're reaping today are perfect proof of the vibration you sustained yesterday, last week, last month. Nothing is against you. Everything is responding to you. And the great advantage is that the moment you change your vibration, reality begins to reorganize immediately. You think differently, perceive different opportunities, attract new people, see paths that were previously invisible. It's like changing the radio station. The music that starts playing always matches the frequency you've chosen. Now, the key to transforming this into a permanent new reality is repetition. It's not enough to feel good once, visualize once, believe once. The universe responds to the pattern, to what becomes constant within you. That's why so many people do affirmations for 2 or 3 days and then give up thinking it didn't work. The problem was never the technique. It was the lack of vibrational consistency. It's like trying to plant a tree and pulling out the seed every day to check if it has sprouted yet. If you want extraordinary results, you need to develop a disciplined mind, not rigid, disciplined, capable of choosing its thoughts instead of being enslaved by them, capable of maintaining alignment even when the world hasn't changed yet, because the world changes after you change, never before. Now that you understand that the universe responds to your frequency, we need to advance to a point that separates those who manifest consistently from those who experience only occasional results, the ability to protect your vibration from external stimuli. The truth is, if you don't master your focus, the world will master it for you. Every single day you are exposed to negative news, limiting conversations, environments that don't nourish your growth, people who think small, and if you aren't conscious, you end up absorbing vibrations that have nothing to do with the reality you wish to create. And then, without realizing it, you begin to vibrate with doubt, fear, hesitation, comparison, scarcity, not because you chose to, but because you let the environment choose for you. The secret isn't to isolate yourself from the world, but to create such a strong inner core that the world no longer dictates your emotional state. This is where we delve into one of the most powerful laws. You don't attract what you desire. You attract what you can consistently vibrate with, even in the face of circumstances. This is spiritual maturity applied to personal development. And how do you do this? It starts by observing your mind. Most people have never learned to observe their own thoughts. They believe that everything the mind produces is truth. But you need to understand, the mind is a tool, not an authority. It reflects your conditioning, your past experiences, your old fears. If you don't train your mind, it will continue repeating patterns you didn't even consciously choose. Therefore, when a negative thought arises, don't try to fight it, deny it, suppress it, or pretend it's not there. Simply recognize it as a mental movement and reposition your vibration, like someone grabbing the steering wheel and guiding the car back in the correct direction. Thoughts don't command you. You are the one who authorizes which ones remain. Vibrational discipline begins like this. You notice what you feel, understand what generated it, and consciously choose the new state you wish to emit. Over time, this process becomes automatic. You learn to stay aligned even amidst chaos. And at that moment, external changes begin to happen faster, because your vibration finally becomes stable. Many people ask, why does it feel like nothing ever changes for me? The answer usually is simple, because their energy fluctuates 10, 20, 30 times throughout the day. One desires prosperity in the morning, but radiates worry at lunchtime. They wish for a new relationship, yet vibrate with frustration when recalling the past. They seek opportunities, but feel a sense of lack whenever they check their bank account. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you consistently hold. And when you begin to sustain the emotional state that aligns with your desired outcome, even before it manifests, that's when what seems like a miracle unfolds. Doors open, paths emerge, the right people appear, new ideas arrive, coincidences cease to be coincidences. You begin to resonate with what you desire. And remember, no true transformation happens merely by what you hear. It occurs when you decide to apply, live by, and align with that knowledge every single day. You already possess within you everything you need to create a reality grander, more prosperous, and more expansive than anything you've ever experienced before. The correct frequency is already accessible, merely waiting for your unwavering decision to stay there. May you continue to allow yourself to grow, expand your consciousness, and claim the place that has always been yours. And if this content resonated with you in some way, share it with a special someone who could also benefit from this message and uplift their own vibration. This creates a powerful ripple effect of transformation that extends far beyond what you can imagine. And I continue this journey with you.